The first question we had prepared was where and how can a young adult practice communication skills? This kind of relates to the last question we just had.
Yeah, I'll touch briefly on this because it does kind of fit in with that. Where can a young adult practice communication skills? Literally anywhere. I mean, from your neighbors, everybody has neighbors of some sort, to somebody at work, school, the post office, the library, wherever you're at, is a time to practice communication skills. That's small talk. You don't have to get into anything deep and personable, but using those small talk topics like the weather and local sports teams, or just anything light and common. And then make sure you're, trying to display good body language. I know we had talked about for some that's a little bit difficult, but also just actively listening and thoroughly listening to what that other person is saying, and making good eye contacts, just being in the moment of that conversation.
How can a young adult practice engaging with others, even if it is a topic you don't enjoy?
We've all been in conversations when it's a topic we're not interested in. Like we don't have the same enjoyment. So, my little trick is that I try to find a question I can ask them about their topic, whether it's like, how did you get interested in this? Or, what does this, help you learn? Different types of things, like, or what does it teach you? Um, or learn from it. Basically, the same sentence. Um, just asking more in-depth questions and making it like a little bit being like more about them can help me to get to know them more. Even if it's, on something that I'm not super interested in.
I'll jump onto that a little bit, Thea, because I 100% agree, right? It's asking those questions to get a little bit more depth about even the individual, because even finding to meet someone, right, we might have different interests and stuff, but how we get to like our interest, it could have came from family, it could have came from friends or different experiences that you have, and it's a lot easier to learn how to put yourself in someone else's shoes by asking those questions and seeing someone else's perspective, even if it's on a topic that you might not enjoy or even like. It can really help us out a little, like later on in life when there's not always those topics or, you know, people and things like that with communication that we're like, ooh, I totally disagree with this person. But at being able to ask those questions in a respectful way to where maybe you can see the perspective of someone else is a skill that is really going to help you farther down the road. And it can be at work, it could be kind of anywhere, and it can kind of also help us with that even regulating some of our emotions when we do get into some more of those personal or heated topics and things.
What do you recommend for young adults to communicate safely with others?
Boundaries. Um,
Boundaries is going to be a huge one. I think also have preset values, you know.
ooh, yeah,
So understand like how you want to be spoken to and treated, and understand because you have your values, other people have their values too.
yeah,
And you need to be able to be respectful of each other.
absolutely. I would also say, um, practice not oversharing. Um, because, when we first meet people and we're starting to make friends, they don't need to know everything about us, right? We've just
Mhm.
met them. They don't need to know where we live. That type of thing. Um, so practicing that of like what questions are appropriate for the stage of friendship that we're in, because the questions we ask or the things we'll disclose about ourselves will get deeper as we move along. It's just the beginning stage is like we want to make sure that we're being safe with the information that we share.
Mhm.
What
Also, think about the individual that you are speaking to, right? Like if I'm speaking to a stranger at the grocery store, they don't need to know my whole background story if I'm just trying to find where their ground beef is. So it's trying to kind of stay on those topics. I know Sarah, I was gonna piggyback a little bit on Sarah. That's what I do. When it comes to like those topics of small talk, right? And making sure that you are keeping it within those kind of set topics that are appropriate for who you're talking to and what you're talking about.
Very modern age of technology, and a lot of communication happens face to face, but I know a lot of young adults and just people in general communicate a lot online, whether it be through systems like Discord or on their gaming system. Just remember, people aren't always who they say they are. Cameras aren't always on them. So again, just be careful who you're talking to. Like Thea said, avoid overly sharing, giving out details they don't need to know.
Also, understanding that you can always walk away or turn
Yes.
off or anything like that too.
You can
I know
always
you,
leave a situation if you feel uncomfortable.
yeah,
Yes.
even with gaming, right? You can always, there's always options that you can mute anybody and everybody and things like that, or you can leave that game. Like if you're playing
Yep.
Call of Duty, you can leave that room. You can go find another one if it's a kind of a toxic environment.
So another thing, I'll just kind of go off of this. In our programs, we talk about self-awareness a lot, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later in our presentation as well. But we do a lot of learning on self-awareness and how it makes us feel. So, what are those triggers inside of us that says, "Ooh, I'm not comfortable," you know?
Mhm.
And really picking on how that feels in our body, because that feels different for everybody as well. And so it's kind of processing and thinking about how that feels. I know I've had conversations with people that I've supported, and it's that question, but how does that feel? And they look at me like I have three heads and don't want to talk about how they feel. But the thing is it's because when you're feeling uncomfortable, you want to remember that feeling, so then oh, something's not right here, and learn what that self-awareness is. The other thing that we've done in programs in the past, and I've seen that, is the circle of relationships as well. So like, where does this person fit in my circle of no, are they acquaintance? Are they just a friend? Are they a close family member? Because just knowing where they fit in that circle can also know how much trust you should have with them with oversharing or not sharing and those kind of things. So that's, again, a lot of this is going to be coming up with is not only talking about boundaries, but practicing those boundaries, practicing where those stop signs need to be put in. And a lot of this we do within program with experiencing it and learning it as we go with a group, or having those one-on-one coaching sessions where we practice and go over those within launch. What do you think would help young adults to better understand information they receive or they are receiving?
My first, when I'm like not understanding something, is to ask clarification questions, being like, this is what I heard. Is this what, you know, is this what you're meaning? Or, can you show me exactly what you want me to do? Or, is there different ways that you can reword the sentence? So just asking questions and advocating for ourselves can do a whole lot.
Yeah, this is definitely going to circle back to those active listening skills, and being present in the moment to fully understand or try to fully understand. Like Thea said, asking those clarification questions. And a big thing for all of us is putting away those distractions. So if you're having a conversation with someone, set your phone aside or put it in your pocket so you're not tempted to scroll through it while you're having a conversation with someone. Turn your TV down, whatever the distraction may be, try to limit those distractions from the conversation itself. lot of people often get nervous to ask questions, whether it be to a friend or to a manager or coworker. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yep. If you don't understand it, there's nothing wrong with saying, "Hey, I'm not understanding.
Yes.
Can you tell me that in another way?" Again, on this one is, for anybody who is working with a young adult, patience. Be patient. Give time to process. And as a young adult, if you need more time to process, take that time. Take your time with the conversation. I know this is easier said than done, because it does take a lot of time to learn to not rush into things. It took me almost most of my life to figure out that, because I would be the impulsive one just to say yes or no, or nod my head. So it takes work and it takes process, but um, if you need to take that time to process, sit back, relax, and let them know that you're thinking about it. Um, I think we do this very well in the one-on-one sessions in launch and next ed, is to practice when we're not understanding how do we approach that situation and how do we ask those questions. But practice, 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 practice. What are some of the things young adults need to learn to be effective communicators?
I'll tackle this one. So when it comes to being an effective communicator, we always think of communication as talking, 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 right? Where a lot more, learning how to be an effective communicator would come from listening. So really mastering those active listening. And when I mean active listening, again, asking questions, right? Sometimes we're so often, if someone's talking, I'm like, oh, how am I going to respond? What am I going to think about? What am I going to say? That we're not actually listening to the person that's speaking. We're hearing them, we know they're saying stuff, but we're ready to jump into that conversation to finish our thought or anything like that. So being present, and sometimes it is taking that step back and really listening and trying to be engaged with what they are saying. And again, asking those questions. You will learn so much more by being the person asking questions to someone than what you are when you are the one telling people things.
Listening is one of the biggest ones. I also always tell young adults to know what type of question is being asked. So there's different types of questions. There's closed-ended questions where it could be answered with a yes or no, or one word. And then there's open-ended questions, where they need more than just one word. So know that you're answering the questions correctly. Just a hint, how was your day, is not a closed-ended question. That's an open-ended question. So but yeah, so know what type of questions going to be asked and practice those questions within normal conversation. Um, and then the other thing that I always say, is if you need that more time or in that active listening, repeat back the details. So like if you're trying to learn somebody's name, repeat their name back when they introduce themselves. If it is your family member telling you, "Hey, can you go do this?" Repeat back, "Oh, you want me to do this," right? And just repeat back that information to them, because then they know that you're receiving it. And this could go with a lot of people, when it goes, but just repeat back that important information, because it just confirms that you have it. It also can give you that time if you need more time to think what you want to say. Oh, and then you can kind of process what you're wanting to say after following up so the conversation can keep flowing. Again, that takes a lot of practice, so you don't sound like a parrot just repeating back word for word. But you want to just focus in on those details. So again, with communication, a lot of this is going to be practice, practice, practice. And even if it's with just a family member you're comfortable with, that's a start. It needs to start somewhere and then it can expand out.